Professor.
Make the argument. But again, it seems like the imposition is as much of an imposition upon the people who are going to have the kids as that person. And again, the person, I think they get to decide whether or not it's...
Oh, this is like, again, this is just such bullshit. It's like almost saying like, oh yeah, the guy who's going to go, you know, kill the lion in the arena, you know, yeah, he's facing the risk and he's got to, you know, deal with the blood and the blah, blah, blah. And I mean, it's just kind of bullshit. Isn't that, that's just kind of bullshit. He's still imposing on something that had nothing to do with whatever it's doing. So it's still bullshit.
An imposition. Now, the mother, we might say, gets to decide as well. And this is where it gets interesting. Because I think the mother wants to say, there are some things that are worth suffering for. See, now the suffering...
Oh, yeah, like what? Yeah, I mean, this is just so stupid. I mean, you know, I'm going to roll dice. I'm going to gamble with something else's welfare and then talk about how it's worth it for me. That's an idiotic. Right there, you've already failed the equation. You're gambling with somebody else's money, Professor. Again, there's just absolutely no point in talking about how, well, I could have slipped at the gambling table and broken my neck. Well, yes, you could have. But that has nothing to do with the fact that when you roll the dice, whatever the dice come up, somebody else is going to get that. Okay? They're going to have to pay the fucking bill if there's a bill. If there's a loss, they're going to pay it. You stupid fuck.
And I think we're going to grant that childbirth can be, I mean, not only pregnancy and labor and birth, but you take all that together.
Oh, again, just keep, again, I'll talk about any criminal who meticulously plans his crime. That doesn't make the crime valid. The fact that somebody is willing to sacrifice to do something doesn't mean the thing they want to do has any validity.
It's painful, it's irritating, filled with uncomfortableness, worry, all this kind of stuff.
Oh, well, yeah, and yeah, I bet you that Goebbels and Himmler and all those other guys, when they're planning how to kill all these Jews, they probably said, oh, this just sucks. We have to waste all this time doing that. But they thought it was worth it. Yeah. So that makes it okay, because they were willing to sacrifice for the betterment of everyone.
And yet the mother says this is worth it. The mother says this is worth it.
Oh, the mother doesn't the mother has no fucking clue. The mother still probably believes in fairies and Tinker fucking Bell. The mother is a fucking idiot, a moron, who hasn't assessed the risk, who has no real appreciation for what the fuck she's doing. She's not a qualified scientist doing a rat maze game. She has no fucking clue. She doesn't even understand that her fucking country is so fucking deep in debt that her kid will basically have to be a slave, or we're going to have to kill the rich. I mean, those are the two choices. We either kill the fucking rich, or your children will have to be a slave to them. But that's the only two choices you motherfuckers have. So I'm sure this bitch hasn't thought about that. So don't tell me what she's thinking. She's not thinking anything. She's thinking, well, even with my extra 40 pounds, I look so fucking hot in my spandex. That's what she's fucking thinking, Professor. She's a dumb, ignorant, fucking twat.
I guess, again, part of the problem there is that there does seem to be, within the antinatalist argument, a kind of futility of life argument. They go, look, life is futile. There seems to be no real significance.
I wish you would deal with something as if it wasn't something you read on a Bazooka Joe bubblegum wrapper or something. I mean, people write books about this shit. Would you want somebody to read your book and then talk about your book like it was a fucking cartoon, like it was a comic strip? To treat it so offhandedly, just ignore what it's about and start talking about how the text is on the cover or what the cover art is. That's all you're doing here. You're not addressing the fucking subject, which is, yeah, we're the product of evolution. 4 billion years of animals consuming, reproducing, cannibalizing through addiction. All right? Deal with that. All right? You can't just sit there and say, that argument didn't exist. Oh, that's just nothing. That argument's nothing. Yeah, that's you're running away from the argument.
significant purpose here. And I think it's a loss of this religious backdrop. And it's kind of invisible monkeys haunting people. They have these overdrawn...
Well, you're the one with the fucking invisible purpose monkeys. You're the one with the invisible thoughts in the woman's head about how she's going to make the world a better place by having Montague, or whatever. She's probably going to name the kid Samsung. She's just find a name that's written on a fucking piece of cardboard somewhere, and that's how she's going to name the fucker. I mean, you kidding me?
On expectations, like God was supposed to be some all-good, all-loving, all-powerful being who was going to make sure that everything...
Again, that's not the argument here, Professor. The argument is that we've acquired intelligence. So now we can step up, we can build a ladder, we can climb up on top of the maze game that we're involved in, and now we can assess it, we can look it over. And we can put on our little civil engineering hat, sort of, and we can look it over and say, well, is this really working? Is this very efficient? What is this attempting to accomplish? And that analysis can take place. And you call it reductionism. No, but it's rational analysis. Okay, this is the most important thing happening as far as we can tell in the universe. And if we're not going to sit there and analyze it, if we're not going to try to construct an understanding of it, then yeah, you might as well take your motherfucking billions of neurons and flush them down the toilet because you're wasting them preposterously.
And because those overdrawn expectations have failed, now somehow everything stinks. Everything doesn't have a purpose, or it's nothing but these kind of reductive functions of sustenance, right, of reproduction.
Look, the fact that life was stupid existed before they invented God. Okay, and probably God lingered so long just because people were desperate for anything. They said, well, just tell me any kind of fairy tale so I can make some sense out of this shit. All right, just anything. Okay, Bugs Bunny. Okay, I'll believe it. All right, and that's probably why wacky religions lasted as long as they did. Is because people were desperate for something better than the truth, because the truth just fucking plain sucked. And it still fucking sucks. So it's not because, religion is dying, that all of a sudden life is stupid. No, life has always been stupid. And we just don't have a lie anymore good enough to fool anybody. You're trying to construct one. You're trying to create a new religion of bibble babble. Okay? But that's all you're doing. You're just a conniving, wheelie-dealing, snake oil selling bullshit artist, and that's all you fucking are.
And consumption and whatever that is. Again, you try to reduce it down to these functions.
Yeah, right. Reduce it to the function. Exactly. Yeah, no, let's not sit there. You would buy a car and you wouldn't ask what the fuel economy is. You wouldn't ask what the maintenance record is. You wouldn't ask what its history is. You wouldn't ask how many people have died in it. You wouldn't ask any of those questions. You just get in and ride. Okay? And who cares? No, the rational person starts asking questions and trying to figure out whether are we putting more into this than we're getting out of this. And that's a fucking reasonable question to ask. And I'm sorry, Professor, but you have no adequate response to the critique that maybe, quite possibly, in fact, life doesn't work.
I think, again, the problem is one of meaning. That life does have meaning, and it especially has meaning for those people who can...
Right, it has meaning to anybody who can make up some bullshit. Yeah, it has meaning as soon as you find a balloon pink enough to distract you and you're willing to chase it. It has meaning as long as you are stupid enough to think that your synthetic cheese doodle is real food. I mean, it has meaning if you're willing to ignore the truth. You can manufacture meaning. You can squeeze it into reality. There's no law against it. But there is a rational argument to be made that is a rape of the truth. That is a high crime against intelligence, okay, to lie. And you're just lying when you start selling this snake oil.
Recognize the gift character of life. Yeah, life is a gift. Now, is that a metaphor? Yes. Is it a better metaphor than life is an imposition? I would say yes.
Yes, well, you would say yes, because but you're still wrong. It's not a metaphor. Again, the word imposition has a definition. So it's a descriptor. It's not a metaphor. So this is an inappropriate use of the word metaphor. And it is quite explicitly, by definition, an imposition. It can't be described as anything else. If I was to create an experiment and I generated little rats to run the experiment, I forced their production, there's no denying that I'm responsible, that I have imposed the circumstance on them. I can't undo that. I can't change that truth. That's a fucking truth. And it's a fucking truth. When you perpetuate life, you create life. And you're responsible for it. And if it's anything else but a gift, it's an imposition.
I would say more people live by that metaphor. See, when Fred says...
Yeah, well, important that you said they live by that metaphor. That means they live by the bullshit. And again, that's all you're selling. You're selling psychology. You're not selling philosophy. And this is outrageous. This is creation science. This is selling. You're attempting to disguise psychobabble as philosophy. And that's not what this crap is.
Is antinatalism a dangerous idea? I would say it's not really, because it hasn't yet been an idea or a metaphor by which people live by. So if you take, is life an imposition? People don't live by that in a way that people do live by life.
Well, whatever. Again, what people live by is irrelevant to a discussion of what the truth is. So again, you're not doing philosophy here. You're just doing... I don't even know what this is. It's not even psychology. It's socio-psychology. And you're not even analyzing it. You're not critiquing it. You're not doing anything constructive. You're just saying, well, this is what the majority of silly people do. And so, yeah, that's pretty impressive, because the majority does that. We must all be impressed somehow. This is what the average person thinks. Therefore, we should all somehow be impressed, because the average person believes that. Well, how does that have any meaning to me? How does that mean anything to me? It means nothing to me.
It's a journey where they should be living perhaps by life as a dance. Right?
Yeah, well, both you and Fred can take that shit and shove it right up your ass, okay? First off, Fred made a video and he said this life is a journey thing too. You know what? The journey always has the context, okay? I had this poster on my fucking wall when I was a kid. It was the only poster my mother ever gave me. The only piece of propaganda she ever tried to shove down my throat. But it said, life is a journey, not a destination. That's the key phrase, okay? The journey part is basically stating that the inverse is you can't live life as if it has a destination. You're just a tourist. You're just somebody looking out the window and saying, isn't that fun? Isn't that pretty? Isn't that fluffy? That kind of thing. Live in the moment kind of bullshit. Because obviously life has no good destination. Your destination is you're going to fucking die. And you might die in a nursing home without a goddamn brain in your head. Which doesn't sound too good. You really put that on a poster? Little old man in a wheelchair drooling on himself, with the shit dripping down in the pan. You want to put that on a fucking 10-year-old kid's poster? No, I don't think so. No, you're going to put pretty little sunrise and little trees. And life is a journey, la 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 la. Because it's proper fucking ganda. It's a fucking lie. All right? And then the bottom line is, the second argument I would say to you is this whole idea of it being a fucking journey is bullshit. Okay? It has a destination. The destination is being productive overall in your existence. Did you cause more suffering? Did you create or facilitate more suffering than you prevented? Did you? That's the destination. The destination is to get through your fucking life, okay, with a net balance that's positive, meaning that you prevented more suffering than you caused. Yeah, that's the destination, is to be able to write, this guy lived a good life on your fucking tombstone, all right, and for it not to be a lie, for it to actually be the truth. That's the destination.
Dance, you don't dance to get to the end of the song. I think there is a kind of...
Dancing is just fucking foreplay. So again, it's just more about this goddamn addiction shit. Alright, so whatever you're doing, whatever. It's just so fucking creepy. I can't even get past the creepiness of this whole idea. Life as a journey is already Teletubby enough. Dancing Teletubbies, it just makes me want to fucking vomit.
A purposelessness by comparison to these grand religious purposes that somehow some people...
No, grand rational purposes. I mean, again, you're just going to keep ignoring. You want a real metaphor? Well, the metaphor is a car. Okay, so if you take like a car, and if it's, there's a fuel economy to it, okay? There's a certain amount of gasoline you put in, and you expect a certain amount of productive work to come out. Well, if you're not getting that productive work, and you're putting in too much gas, it's a car you don't run. You don't turn the fucking key, all right? Because the equation won't fucking work. And that's the dilemma of the human condition. That's the dilemma of the sentient condition. We are need machines. By our existence, we create the need to go, and yet we don't. We inefficiently use fuel. So the going can never take place without leaving a ton of unsatisfied need or exploitation on the table.
We're convinced that life isn't significant enough if it's just filled with walks with the dog and hanging out and meals with friends and good conversation.
Oh, whatever. Again, all that crap can be turned into any kind of generic pink balloon. I'll give you some lead paint. All right, and you're going to find life funner and funner. The more lead paint I give you, the more you're going to enjoy your life. Do you want to enjoy it at that price? And that's all we're arguing here, isn't it? Isn't that really all this argument is about? Is you would like to live as a retard, I would not.
Somehow it needs to be about more than that. Again, I think part of the problem is that, and I talked about it already with consumer capitalism, but that for many people, the most important aspect of life is multi-generationality and of children, of having children. I mean, baby.
Well, why even talk about that? Again, another irrelevant point. The point isn't about, well, what are most people addicted to? And we'll just validate that addiction because it's the popular addiction. Is that all you're saying? All right? Because that's not what we're arguing. We're not arguing against that particular addiction. We're arguing against the whole notion of addiction. And we're arguing for the simple recognition that that addiction is no different than any other fucking addiction that compels human beings to climb mountains or, sail around the world in a rickety boat or fly around the world in a stupid balloon. All the little bullshit that obsesses people and they end up crashing and burning doing for absolutely no good reason.
These are a really significant part of many people's lives because...
And whose problem is that? Isn't that their psychological problem? Again, so why do I have to validate that? And see, but this is coming from a guy who says vegetarianism is a dietary choice. That's what he calls it, a dietary choice. Because he won't concede that there is this thing that motivates people called their logic and their understanding. And that it isn't a dietary choice. It isn't a taste preference. Okay? It's an action done because of rational motivators. Okay? By understanding that there's an equation that has to be served. And that you can't serve it through that behavior. Well, the point is that the anti-natalist is saying directly to the face of the motherfucking birther, okay, that they haven't done the math. And that they should, at minimum, be able to explain why they don't have to. Give me a paragraph explaining why you can do your insane gambling games with a non-voluntary participant, and that somehow you have the authority to take that risk for them. Explain it. We've earned a fucking paragraph defending that.
I mean, family as a value is a kind of ultimate value. No.
Oh, wait, this is like saying, well, dog loves to eat its poo, so yeah, it's the ultimate value to eat its poo. I mean, what the fuck? This is just nothing. This has nothing to do with the fucking subject. This is not philosophy. Again, this is about human psychology. What motivates people is irrelevant. What we're trying to figure out is whether the mechanism of people works. Is it functional? Does it meet a minimum efficiency standard?
I don't necessarily agree with it, but in its time, when Aristotle said eudaimonia, he said thriving requires children, and by that he meant...
Well, you don't agree with it, but you're going to quote it, and then you're going to use a word like thriving. Again, it's just a completely... Why not? Fred also uses this word. A nonsensical, meaningless word. For every individual, thriving is a different thing. They like to dance a different dance, or however you want to describe it. And so it's just useless to say something like that. Okay, because I'm not going to thrive with kids. Okay, and obviously I think, Professor, you've decided you won't thrive if you have kids either. Because you don't have any, do you? You could adopt some if you thought you were going to thrive with them around.
Big families and children who have children, and there again this gift character starts to become very robust, because you've been given birth by your parents, but then you give birth to children, and then that's a kind of a gift back to the grandparents. And I don't think this is a gift exchange. We're not trying to think about it in terms of gift exchange like you owe something to a person. No, it feels good to give back when it's not an obligation, when it becomes ridiculous.
Oh, I mean, whatever. Again, so this is just ignoring the whole argument, just playing this game that because the silly retards love to chase their pink balloons do have value. That's all you're saying to me, because average, dopey, silly humans contrive a whole bunch of crap in their head that says watching baseball is a good thing and creating heroes out of baseball players is a good thing. Then all of a sudden we all have to celebrate that crap? No, we don't. There's no reason for me to believe any of that mush means anything. So anyway, we need an interruption. All right, we'll finish up here. This is really, I'm sorry. I didn't realize.
Gift exchange, and you have to give a gift because someone gave you something. That's really a denial of the gift and the removal of the gift character. No, the gift character comes without a question. That's why you're not consulted. And that's why I don't like the argument of imposition doesn't really work for me, because you could say, well, you have no right to.
Oh, well, whatever. You're not consulted, and that's part of the gift. I mean, that's part of sabotage. That's a tiger trap. They don't consult the tigers first. I mean, that's just such garbage. It's just such nonsense. Most of the time when you give a gift, you do a little bit of research and find out what the person's interested in, and you find out whether they're likely to like what you're giving them. Now, if you're going to sit there and have a kid and then expect the kid to go to school and be educated, and he's probably going to end up smarter than you, then maybe you ought to think, well, maybe if he's smarter than me, he won't fall for this bullshit. And so really, I probably shouldn't impose it on him.
Impose sentience upon another person, but the person doesn't have anyone to speak for him or her except for us.
And yeah, that's why we're speaking for them, the future. And we're saying there are people that you will commit to this life thing that aren't going to appreciate it. And because of that, you really have no right to play this game, because your winners aren't in pain. You're not on a rescue. So this is another metaphor. This is a real metaphor, right? Now, ambulances go really fast down the street and take a higher risk of creating a car accident. Well, they take that risk because they're on a rescue mission, so they can accept casualties because they're on a rescue mission. There is no rescue mission. There is no necessity to this child procreation thing. And we know that there's a risk that you're going to impose it on somebody who's going to resent the motherfucking hell out of you for it, okay, and hate your fucking guts for it. So yeah, you can't do it, all right? You can't do it until you take away the risk, okay, of the imposition. You have no right to do it because you're not on a rescue mission. You're not saving the dead from their deadness.
And if you say, well, exactly, then we need to speak on their behalf. Well, I guess I kind of feel like it's up to the particulars. I don't think that life...
Oh, well, that's all kind of silly, isn't it? So, I mean, when somebody, how can it even be up to somebody to what? So they have to invest 30 years to figure out that they've been ripped off? I mean, you can't figure out you've been ripped off until you get really ripped off, until you find out it was a big rip-off. And so there's no logic to any of that. I mean, it's like somebody... being a Nazi, and then they realize later, oh man, I was such an asshole. There's no way of undoing it. You're just stuck with the fact that, oh, I was an asshole, I fell for it. You can't undo that. You can't undo the waste.
Point blank stinks. No, I think that's reductive. That's just one way of...
Again, yeah, you just keep saying things like, that's reductive. Well, then I just come up with a word with, that's just bullshit, Professor. That's just bullshit, Professor. That's just bullshit, Professor. That's just bullshit, Professor. All right, because that's all you're talking is bullshit. Reductivism. There's nothing wrong with being reductive. You have to explain why the reduction is inaccurate. okay, and coming up with your implication that maybe there's a purple unicorn, that's not an argument. You can't undo the logic of rational reductionism with an argument like, well, it doesn't account for the purple unicorn. I don't have to account for purple unicorns.
Of reducing all of life's variety, the diverse experiences that are there, I do think there are better and worse lives, and I do think the quality of life is the issue. The opposite of the antinatalist is not the pro-natalist. It's a pro-lifer. People really got to get this straight. I mean, the confusion there seems to be that people are going, oh, you're...
Oh, come on. This is just such bullshit. No, the opposite of an antinatalist is anybody who defends the perpetuation of the human race through reckless, irrational, unjustified God-playing. Okay, so when you point to somebody who's not God-playing, without a license to be God-playing, without some sort of authority saying, this is why I'm allowed to God-play. So that's the opposite of an antinatalist. Anybody who justifies this fucking bullshit experiment being perpetuated by any motherfucking human beings or any creatures, period. Okay? That's the opposite. Alright? So don't play your fucking game that the opposite is some sort of right-to-life nut. No, the opposite is any fucking nut. Okay, who would impose the risk, who would gamble with somebody who says it's okay to gamble with other people's fucking money, that it's okay to drink and drive. Anybody who says it's okay to drink and drive is the enemy, is the alternative to the antinatalist.
Either pro-natalist or antinatalist. No, it would seem like on one side is antinatalism, on the other side is pro-life. The non-antinatalist is not a pro-lifer and is not a pro-natalist.
Well, I'm sorry, you are. Okay, if you defend the act, you're pro. Okay? So you can't unravel that. That's the simple truth. Either you think people should be allowed to recklessly and irresponsibly play fucking goddamn God, or you don't.
They're somehow against the knee-jerk reaction of the antinatalist. And I think it is a kind of knee-jerk reaction.
No, I think it's built on a whole fucking goddamn getting separate from the knee-jerk reaction. The knee-jerk reaction is, oh, well, life was always here, so it must be good because everything that's here must be good because everything was here before me. You're the knee-jerkers. You're the one operating and functioning in the completely cliche, standard, routine, simplistic manner. Let's just do what the DNA says. That's all you're saying, Professor. That's all you're saying. Let's just do what the DNA says. That's knee-jerk. That's a fucktarded reflex.
I think for many people, it's like it's a fleeing of responsibility. Now, somebody might say, no, it's the owning of ultimate responsibility. It's coming to terms with what we should do in light of the horror of having it inflicted sentience upon a person without really consulting them, and now they have to live out their days. Well, no, it would seem like this. Once you're born and you've decided not to commit suicide, which I think is a very good decision. I want to give a shout out there. I want to post it.
Oh, then, this is just such bullshit. So you're going to sit there and judge why somebody else should commit suicide or not. You're going to sit there and calculate for them what they should desire and how committed they should be to playing the game. I mean, that's just so fucking disgusting. You're going to tell other people how hungry they should be. I mean, fuck you. Fuck you.
Video link down to Storm Goes Boom on her suicide is not the answer. Yes, suicide is
not
the
right.
answer.
How do you know that? How the fuck do you know that? How do you know that? You don't know that. You have no fucking clue. If I take your desire away, Professor, if every meal you eat no longer tastes like anything, if you don't get an erection ever again, if I take away all your addictions, if I cleanse your ego of thinking there's any accomplishment in writing 10 books or having them gold-plated in the Library of Congress, if I take away all your capacity to accomplish anything that means a motherfucking thing to you, all right, and I leave you in that position of having absolutely no fucking hunger for any of this shit, alright? You're not going to make any fucking argument to me, alright, about how suicide isn't the answer. Yeah. No, I don't think so, Professor. Fuck you, you fucking arrogant motherfucker.
life when some person has chronic pain and they're really caught with a right to die. Yeah, I'm going to grant that. But